Here we go. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who review, episode number 105. We're here reviewing, a First Doctor story. Yep, a First Doctor story known as The Keys of Marinus. It is overall the 5th Doctor Who story ever released. Now, why did I decide to pick this one to watch next after I watched the Crontons last time? Purely because basically I have decided to make an interesting strategy when it comes to Doctor Who. Now, up until recently, I had never reviewed a First Doctor story. I didn't have much interest at all. But after watching some early stories, I figured, why not? Because the fact that Second Doctor is pretty much, as of right now, as of my last video, I'm almost done reviewing Second Doctor stories. Well, televised ones. There's still novels, audio dramas, and there might be a comic, I'm not sure. Overall, for Second Doctor, there is only about 5 stories left. And only 2 of them are watchable completely. That be Animus and War Games. And that's it. This one we'll talk about the Keys of Marinus. Now, the thing is, the previous story, last time I talked about First Doctor, it was the popular story, The Celestial Toymaker. An excellent story that the animation has received some very positive praise with that one. And I do know the fact that last month they released another First Doctor story animated. This one being The Savages. Yep, that has been released. And as of right now, there's still a good number of stories when it comes to of the missing ones. That still need to be animated. Yes. Okay, my plan is to do this. One First Doctor story, and then do a 4th Doctor story. This is so I can pretty much just pile my way through, just go through the First Doctor, and then also get done the 4th Doctor, and maybe the 5th Doctor too. And probably when I get a chance to finish the First Doctor, I'd probably finish at the 6th Doctor at that point. Presumably. So, if we're talking about the episode itself, let's talk about basically how many more, what stories are left to be animated. There is Marco Polo, the previous story for this one. Not been animated yet. Nope. There's also The Crusade, Mission the Unknown, Mythmakers, The Daleks' Master Plan, The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, The Smugglers, and that's it. Yep, 7 more stories left to be animated. As for why they haven't bothered to do any more, I'm not sure. I mean, The Smugglers was only released last month. Yeah, Keely was like a month ago. And can you believe there is only 3, yes, 3 Second Doctor stories to be animated? As for when, no idea. That's the honest truth. I have no idea. There's one theory, one story I've heard possibly, that they could put Mission Unknown with the Dalek Master Plan because they kind of lead to each other. That might be interesting, yes. But as for when, I don't know. So what is the Key of Marinus? Well, we have the Doctor, Ian, Susan, and Barbara arrive in this island where the ocean is acid. The beach is covered in glass. Susan, of course, apparently misplaced one of the shoes get burned with the acid. So Ian, By the way, in this story, this whole story, Ian is wearing the outfit that Marco Polo gave him in the previous story. Yes, I do know about the Marco Polo stuff because I've seen snippets of it. The only reason I'm not reviewing Marco Polo because I rather review something I can actually see, not frickin' telesnaps. I am not the biggest fan of telesnaps because I like to see people move, not just see pictures and hear audio. Not the biggest fan of that. Unless it's an audio drama, there's no reason for that at all. I know there's telesnaps that exist for a lot of these stories, but honestly, I don't want to watch them. Honestly, I had nothing against the person who made these telesnaps at all. Nothing against them. It just, for me, not interested. Not at all. So they land, and of course, Ian gives Susan basically her boots, and we see these weird people later identified as the Voidoids. Oh, here's something interesting about this story. Did you know it was actually a story written by Terry Nation? You're thinking, wait, the guy who created the Daleks? Yes. And apparently the plan is with the Voidoids was that the plan was the hope was they would become as popular as the Daleks. That didn't happen because they barely appear after this. They're one of those things that appear in Classic Who that nobody cares for, sadly. So, and then of course they're kind of brought. Of course they see this weird building, and of course one with Susan, and we see a person running. Of course, some of these keys, like, nah, we're good, and we're gonna leave. And of course, go to TARDIS, and they can't get inside because the guy running the island is surrounded with a force field. And then the guy basically gives them an assignment, which is like the no choice matter. You have to retrieve these 5 keys. Well, actually retrieve 4 keys because he has the first key with him. And you also retrieve my agents. Yes, my agents, kind of in a way. Though he doesn't say agents per se, but he does look for his daughter, which they do find her at the first location they go to. Which apparently that the devices they're given to go over the place are similar to TARDIS, same as a child in space, but not time, despite the fact that this is really weird. It's like we go from an island surrounded by acid to a society run by brains in the jar. Yes. And we have the guy there like, oh, get whatever you want. Apparently they hypnotize people. And like, oh, look at this really cool looking lab. And it's an empty room with a table and a disgusting cup. I'm like, was there drugs? No, apparently, get this. So to manipulate the TARDIS team, they put discs in her head, and Barbara is the one basically just not getting it because apparently the disc fell off her head and it broke. And the person sent to do it is about to be punished, and turns out she's actually the Adventure's daughter. And then, of course, they bring us to the room with the scientist, with the weird brains in a jar. So they kind of actually Ian Bright brings her there because he been brainwashed. So then she proceeds to grab a something and proceeds to smash all the computer stuff. And apparently these glass domes were impossible to break, but they killed him and freed him anyways. And it turns out the guy was kind of their host, get whatever they want. It turns out he's also agent of the guy who actually they're working for. So they look for they gave him the key, and of course basically they have their own thing. Apparently they didn't think not much of it anyways. So they go next location. Well, actually, the Doctor goes to a different location, and he's absent for the next 2 episodes. You're thinking, why in the world is the Doctor absent? Well, there's a reason why. Apparently, William Hartnell was getting overworked, so he was sent on vacation for a week. Yep. Sent on vacation. See, in the UK, they refer to a vacation as a holiday. So the term is, he went on holiday. Basically, he went on vacation. a well-deserved vacation. And apparently, like, a lot of the cast members did get vacations too. Apparently, these guys working nonstop for about 4 freaking months on this show. Because at this point, this is technically their 5th story they worked on. But as for how many episodes they've worked on so far, like, in the first season show alone, for Doctor Who, in a span of just a handful of months, excuse me, let's see, 4 plus 7, that's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 18, roughly 20 straight episodes. And this was non-stop from, I think they said they've been working since like October, I think it was, that they've been working on this Doctor Who at this point. And at this point, they just give the cast a break. Give them a 1-week break, which is fine. I don't think there's that really an issue. By the way, did you know the story aired from the period of April 11, 1964 to May 16th, 1964? So yes, this year marked apparently 61 years since the story aired. Yep. And also, so the first location to go to after, of course, Doctor goes to no location where the last key is because he investigates stuff. So, Ian, Barbara, Susan, Ados, who apparently was cast because of his good looks, and they had their actress play Kale, apparently because they need someone beautiful, someone look like Princess Diane. Well, it's a princess, anyways. Actually, Princess Diane wasn't born yet. I don't know if she was or not, but so. I love the fact how they cast these people, which was really cool. I think that in the case, I think one of the characters in the story was cast because it was offered by, was a friend of the production people. So, where's the first place they go? A frickin' jungle. Yep, a jungle. Right after that's the next place they go. Where, by the way, the episode ended with basically of Susan screaming. And Carol Ford hated this story, I read, because she hated the fact that Susan was basically written to act like basically a child. Despite the fact she's technically a teenager, but that, well, parents-wise, she looked like a teenager, despite she's probably older than that. So, yes, then of course, basically, like, apparently, like, this island is basically like more like island's alive and presumably got the real key. So that Ados and Susan and the other girl all leave, probably on their vacation. So then basically all episode 3 is all focused on Ian and Barbara. And it's kind of the same thing with the very next story too. Probably because basically Susan came back from her vacation too. As I'm sure in the case of Ian and Barbara, they probably got the vacation once the story wrapped up for a week. That's presumed anyways. So, it's like, oh yeah, out of the sent them, of course, in the jungle, and there's some experimentation going on. Apparently this episode was targeted at plagiarism. Yes. Because of reasons. I thought that was kind of weird. Like, really? A Doctor Who story charged with plagiarism? Because of the shaking tree stuff? And the fact it was also apparently, get this, a attempted tree rape scene with Barbara. Which for some reason, I don't think this is by sheer... Here's the thing. I don't think Sam Raimi himself actually solved the story. This is by sheer coincidence. We had a similar thing happen in the Evil Dead movie. With the whole thing of a tree being alive. And attempted to rape one of the women in the movie. And... it just by sheer coincidence. So I don't think that basically Sam Raimi ripped up this thing. I don't know if he's ever seen Doctor Who at all. I have no idea when it came to that. Because he's the one who directed Evil Dead. Because when people nowadays think of Sam Raimi, people think of his Spider-Man trilogy. People don't usually think of him directing Evil Dead. People do know about Evil Dead. People don't know the fact he directed it. Also with the Darkman, which is a really cool movie, by the way. Yes. So, guy gives them numbers, and they presume it's safe. Nope, and apparently it's a jar. And look, there's a key. Then Ian and Barbara get transported to what appears to be some wilderness, and then they're saved by some trapper. Oh yeah, and it turns out basically the guy is ruthless. At one point, he nearly strands people in the cave whenever he gets reunited. And the key is actually near these 4 knights. These 4 warriors, fertilized. How the heck they got there is never really explained. It's just really weird. So, then of course, basically, like, they turn the heat on, they get the key, they get out of there, and then of course they deal with the trapper, they get back to devices, along with the keys that he took from them, and then they proceed to go to the next location. So what's the location, I ask? So, the first city they went to, that was episode 2. The second one, basically the whole thing with the jungle, that was episode 3. In episode 4 was the snow. By the way, it's one of the traveling stories that I've read. It's actually the first one to do this. 5 and 6 basically are set in this sort of semi-dictatorship where you have the officers being like military uniforms and for his guardians. So Ian has arrived in this place last of everybody, and he sees the body and he sees the key, and then he's knocked unconscious by something, and he's framed for murder. And the guy apparently was investigating him. It's a very interesting murder mystery, this one, like who did it. Because Ian didn't do it. He had no motive to kill the guy. He never met the guy prior to that very day. And it's actually the doctor that he actually been in contact with him. He didn't tell the court about this. So, after some convincing anyways, apparently Adrian was the one who basically murdered the guy, despite the fact they charged Ian with it, and you would think, oh, the guy confessed, he's like, oh, maybe let him go. Nope, still not enough. Because apparently he mentioned he had accomplices, and they suspected it might be the doctor. Despite the fact the guy has never really killed, though he did have one kill in the first episode, well actually second episode mostly. So it turns out the people behind this are Aiden's wife, who apparently faked being a grieving widow, who had taken Susan hostage, and her co-conspirator was the prosecutor. When he has it like this, I'm like, I call for a mistrial over the fact that the prosecutor was the real one all along. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Oh, by the way, he's basically he's caught in the act thanks to Susan overhearing something. Oh, I'm here to pick up the keys. And they reveal, oh, he's behind all along. Ian's released, and of course, get transferred back to the island, which that's when they were the Vervoids in episode 6. Kind of in a ways, they only see like 3 to the whole story. As for where the heck, by the way, it's explained that these people are rebelling, who are like, oh, playing was peaceful, despite the fact the rest of playing was like that for some reason. So, they're not actually beaten by the doctor per se, they're just going to fake. Oh, by the way, there was actually 2 keys found in episode 3. The first one was a fake. And it was discovered a fake by everyone else. And, of course, they, found the real one. So they gave the Vervoids the fake one. And the machines, which were also apparently... Adams was in love with the inventor's daughter. So they decided to go back to the city to lead a very happy life. And the doctor recommends to the daughter, can you please continue father's work? And she's like, sure, no problem. And then, of course, Ian keeps the piece of the key because the machine's been destroyed, and that's the story. Excellent story of this one. I thought the story was a lot of fun. Nothing really wrong here per se, but next time, basically discussing Doctor Who will be the 4th Doctor. Yep, the plan is to discuss basically the next story after Terror of the Zygons. Yep. Next video. Bye.